Right, we come out of there to take you live to the police minister briefing the media on crime statistics.
Secretary, officers, and all heads of entities, media at large. The calls by South Africans on the police to decisively deal with crime are loud and they are clear. I stand here before you this afternoon supported by the full contingent of the SABC management to say these calls by South Africans are not falling on deaf ears. The SABC is and will continue to intensify intelligence-led operations to take down individuals or organized criminals hell-bent on terrorizing communities. We are enriched by the stabilization of the Crime Intelligence Division of SABC through the appointment of the Divisional Commissioner with a wealth of policing and investigative experience. Lieutenant General Khumalo, your job is cut out for you and your team. While the crime figures we are releasing today don't paint an overall positive picture of the crime situation in our country, they do, however, show that police are pushing back on criminality through visible policing and disruptive operations. Plainly put, the more boots on the ground were not just a slogan. Their impact have been felt and starting to make a difference in our communities. Investigations into mass shootings in the Eastern Cape, Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal have resulted in arrests in Bichi and Nomzamo, Pietermaritzburg and KwaNobuhle respectively. We welcome the 6 out of the 8 life sentences handed down by the Pietermaritzburg High Court on the Cliplands 8 who were behind the killing spree at the Durban hostel. The political task team investigating murders in KZN continues to arrest hitmen and those who order assassination on the political rival. Police are also cleaning their own house and ridding the service of officers who choose to partner with rogue criminals elements. In this financial year, 46 police officers have been dismissed for various transgressions. With that said, we know and understand that police alone will not be able to drive out criminality on our streets, in our alleyways, in our homes, schools, and places of leisure and worship. We call on communities to take charge and be allies of safety. We are calling on residents of Mfuleni, Alexandra, Inanda, Seshego, Mitchell's Plain, Diepsloot, Umlazi, and all other policing areas with stubborn crime patterns to be agents and activists against crime and criminality. Someone, somewhere, somehow knows something. Yes, it is the job of the police to prevent, combat, and investigate crime, assisted by better environmental design and better social conditions. A community-centered approach in the prevention and combating of crime will lead better results. We call on all South Africans to be part of safety partnership between civil society and community structures, religious and other organized groupings, business and law enforcement. The safety partnership means you are no longer a spectator, but an active player in keeping your community safe. The crime statistics figure released today reflect crime reported to the South African police during October to December 2022. This reporting period includes the festive season period, where for the first time since COVID-19 reached our shores in 2020, there were no restrictions. Essentially, this is the first festive season with increased movement of people and high number of social gathering, including family gathering and celebrations. We preempted the increased festive season activities and the deployment of police to identified areas of concern were ramped up. The deployment included the project 10,000 new police constables who have and continue to increase the police footprints on the ground. It is encouraging that 10,000 more recruits will be trained in 2023 and join the police service at the end of the year. The third quarter crime figures show that while there are increases in contact crimes such as murder, assault, and robberies, there is significant improvement in crimes detected as a result of police action. There are signs of improvement in crimes such as cash in transit heist and bank robberies, which have reported decrease in the period of reporting. These decreases are attributed to increased police visibility through patrols, stop and search operations, vehicle checkpoints, and road blocks. 52,711 people were arrested for various crimes, including murder, sexual offences, assault, carjacking, as well as other serious crime during the festive season. As part of responding to the calls by South Africans, the capacitation and resourcing of the SABC to improve its services at the station level is ongoing. Discussions are underway within the security cluster to tighten the gaps and loopholes in the criminal justice system as a whole. This includes the bail regime and the role of parolees and ex-offenders are playing in the overall safety of citizens. We all agree that punishment should fit the crime, and the justice system and law enforcement should collaborate better. At a cluster level, we are also engaging the issues of porous borders, which has a direct impact in policing. Over 13,000 illegal foreigners were arrested during the period of reporting. The SABC management and this ministry have also had promising engagements with our counterparts from Lesotho and Mozambique around cross-border crimes and intensifying our collaboration on policing intervention. Over and above legislation to bolster police work, the Presidential Service Delivery Acceleration Program, Operation Vulindlela, is aimed at accelerating services delivery in the SABC. We will further improve the effectiveness of law enforcement. The policing reforms aim to significantly and urgently transform the SABC 10111 call centers, which remain the heart of communication between communities and the police. We cannot allow, National Commissioner, for a situation where South Africans are not able to reach police when they are in need of help. This is why the reforms will, among other things, address personnel shortages through a mass recruitment drive. Other technological advancement will be ushered in to ensure not a single call is not attended to. Operation Vulindlela reforms will also see the building and maintenance of police stations to ensure equal access to police services. And the reforms will urgently address obstacles experienced in SABC garages across the country. We have no doubt that legislation amendments, policing reforms, and renewed and strengthening crime intelligence and partnership with communities will deal crime a heavy blow. Funding is also a key component in our response to calls by South Africans. We are responding to the shortages of vehicles in the SABC to improve the everyday work of police officers on the ground. However, the aftermath of COVID-19 has caused delay in delivery of police vehicles countrywide. More patrol vans and high-powered vehicles have been ordered to supplement visible policing and specialized units such as highway patrol, flying squad to respond effectively to crime. While integrated crime prevention and crime combating operations are critical in policing, this ministry is fast-tracking pieces of legislation aimed at closing gaps that are hampering on policing and laws that bolster police work. One such example is an amendment of the South African Police Act to strengthen the functioning of community policing forum. The amendment will ensure that CPFs are provided with some resources to enable them to function optimally. CPFs are the police's strongest link to communities and play an integral role in the safety partnership that we are calling on. To date, a total of 1,156 police stations in the country have active CPFs. Iphoyisa ngumphakathi. Another call we are responding to is the escalation of violent crime in our communities. These crime statistics show that 7,555 people were murdered between October and December 2022. Intense community-centered and intelligence-led solution is needed to fully address the proliferation of firearms. Again, someone, somewhere, somehow knows something. Police are also on the pulse in removing illegal weapons off our streets. In the past 12 months alone, police have permanently removed and destroyed 65,519 illegal firearms. The SABC will continue to intensify operations to detect and remove illegal firearms and ammunition, while legislation intervention in the amendment to Firearms Control Act to address the availability of guns in our communities is underway. Out of 7,555 people murdered in the 3 months of reporting, 3,144 people were killed with firearms. 2,498 people were killed with other weapons such as knives, sharp and blunt instruments, bricks, in many cases even with bare hands. It is clear a broader conservation must be had about what is at the heart of violent crime in the country. While gun violence is problematic and poses a serious threat to lives and livelihoods, with the analysis of the current and previous statistics, it is quite evident that firearms are only part of bigger problem at the core of the matter. This is a human behavior and a human problem, which clearly indicates that even without firearms, many people still die. They do find the way of murdering people. We have to be honest as South Africans about the causes of violence and address them. High rates of unemployment and poverty levels, the mushrooming of informal settlements with little to no service and other socio-economic ills are breeding criminality, coupled by a high number of undocumented foreign nationals that are hard to trace after the commission of the crime. It is said, indala, ibanga ulaga. The violence that is stalking communities is translated to increased number of assaults, which escalates to attempted murders and in some cases murder. The reality is assaults are feeders of domestic violence and other violence crimes. 42 years old Given Vurum, who was found guilty of 10 counts of rape and robbery of women and young girls in Vuwani in Limpopo. He was handed down 4 life sentences with an additional 135 years behind bars. Police are sharpening their responses to gender-based violence and femicide from an operational and legislative point of view. The Criminal Law Forensic Procedures Amendment Act, also referred to as a DNA Act, will come into operation on the 30th of March 2023. The DNA Act is a crucial weapon in the police arsenal of crime-fighting tools against GBVF, specifically with regard to the identification of offenders. This piece of legislation will remove serial rapists off our streets. In our resolve to ensure perpetrators of violence against women and children and vulnerable groups are brought to book, From October to December 2022, 4,992 suspects were arrested for GBVF related. That is from October to December. During the same period of reporting, 71 accused were handed down 89 life sentences. 219 accused were sentenced between 1 to 9 years imprisonment, culminating to a total of 1,079 years behind bars. 143 accused were sentenced between 10 to 19 imprisonment, which is combined sentences of 2,063 years imprisonment, while 67 other accused were collectively sentenced to 20 years and more for GBFS-related crime. Fellow South Africans, it is alarming that a total of 5,935 rape incidents took place at the residence of perpetrator/victim, including residents known by victim perpetrator. These are family, friends, and neighbors. We're trying to humble on this point time and again. And these 5,935, they were raped by the people they know from the places where they're supposed to be safe. We welcome the sentence of the killer of the 8-year-old Tarzan van Wyk, who was this week convicted to 9 life sentences and 259.5 years behind bars for the gruesome murder and rape of the young girl. The call on community to be allies against crime cannot be underestimated when it comes to the prevention and combating of GBV and femicide. It remains a betrayal of humanity to look away and ignore abuse and violence of anyone, let alone women, children, and other vulnerable groups in society. Taking a video on your cell phone and sharing it on social media cannot be a normal response to a pandemic that this country is grappling with. When you see something, say something and do something. Information from communities is crucial and can assist in police investigation. Members of media, the SABC have cleared its historic DNA backlog. As of yesterday, 16 February 2023, the DNA backlog, which was initially over 241,000, is now at 1,600. This is 99.3% reduction in the country's DNA backlog figures. We have completed the building and capacitation of the laboratory in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape, which will drastically relieve pressure from the Western Cape laboratory going forward. As of today, the SABC and NPA project has resulted in 25,599 prioritized GBVF-related court-ready cases, which have been successfully enrolled. Police are using what is at their disposal amid budget cuts and growing population to police a violent society. We thank the President and Treasurer for the new approach in prioritizing the massive recruitment in the SABC and further capacitation of specialized units. This intervention will soon yield positive results in the overall fight against crime. The truth of the matter is that poverty and inequality and unemployment, coupled with little to no basic service, is impending on policy. That is why the Integrated Crime and Violence Prevention Strategy, recently adopted by government to address the drivers of crime, must be fast-tracked in order to boost safety and security in communities and the country as a whole. Police visibilities, provincial commissioners, will always work in your favor if we are to end the reign of criminals who are hell-bent on terrorizing communities. Results and desired outcomes can only be achieved if management leaves the offices and lead from the front in the streets. Operation Okai Malawi in Gauteng is a model that will be replicated and be made a national policing feature that brings fear to criminals and confront to and comfort to the law-abiding citizens. We are calling on provincial commissioners to take cue from Gauteng and intensify their provincial operations, focusing on troublesome stations and remove them from the top 30 high crime stations, both nationally and provincial. We just want to raise one thing. We can expand later, but as we are seated here today, there is an operation that started last night at about 11 at the place Malmesbury, where this naturalized former German citizen has been found in a house, found with 42 guns, with 2 vans full of bullets, and we are still working on opening other safes. He stays alone in this warehouse that is full of all these weapons. He's got the powder to refill the bullets. Is around here in Cape Town. So maybe while these guns, they cross the borders, they are stolen from police and others, stolen from household. It does look like drugs. People are beginning to produce their own around here. That is here in Western Cape. Maybe it does answer who supplies these so many bullets. We are saying police started at about 11 last night to count these bullets, haven't finished as we speak now. They are full in two vans, those bullets that are refilled in this house of this. It does look like is a former military man that has been naturalized here. So then one will invite the honorable, the honorable today, Skukun, to give us your right figures. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Minister of Police, General Bheki Cele, the DM of the Police Service, Mr. Kasam Matale, the National Commissioner of the Police Service, General Massimo, the Deputy National Commissioner of Policing, General Masigili, colleagues and members of the media. Good afternoon. I'll be presenting sitting down because the length of the court is not sufficient enough or long enough for me to stand at the podium. And I hope I'll be forgiven for that because it is not my ideal way of presenting, because in somehow I thought standing up is a sign of respecting the audience. But with that said, let me take you through the Q3 crime statistics that had been reported to the South African Police covering the period the 1st of October 2022 up to the 31st of December 2022, which is the Q3 crime statistics. I'll simply go into the table as we know, as the norm, that we give an overview of the crime picture that had been reported within this current particular reference period. For the murders, we had recorded 7,555 murders, an increase of 669. Sexual offenses, we recorded 15,545, an increase of 1,357. Attempted murder, 7,016, an increase of 1,378. Assault GBH, 50,582, an increase of 4,069. Common assault, 52,741, an increase of 5,660. Common robbery, 12,752, an increase of 2,228. Robbery with aggravating circumstances, 37,829, an increase of 3,686. Overall, The contact crimes, which is the sum total of the crime that I've just read out, increased by 19,067 from 164,953 in the 2021 quarter 3 to 184,020 in quarter 4. Then the breakdown of the sexual offenses, which we have already indicated there. When we break them down here into the component crimes that make up sexual offenses, starting with the rape, we had an increase of rapes of 1,104, sexual assault an increase of 85, attempted sexual offenses an increase of 239, and we had a decrease of contact sexual offenses of 71. Then the subcategories of robbery aggravating circumstances, which we've already indicated there. Here we thus break down the component crimes which make up this particular subcategory. Starting with the carjacking, we had an increase of 153, robbery at residential premises an increase of 496, and we had a decrease in robbery at non-residential premises. And the three crimes that I've just read out are collectively termed trio crimes, and collectively they have increased by 494. Then we had a decrease of robbery of cash in transit of 3 counts, of bank robberies a decrease of 5, truck hijacking an increase of 44. Then when we compare taking into consideration the total population of the particular of the country using the 2021 mid-year population estimate, so that we can be in a position to compute what are called per capita crimes, that is only for crimes that are against a person. Using that series, we see that we had a per capita murder of 12.4 per 100,000, rapes 20.3 per 100,000, attempted murder 11.5 per 100,000, assault GBH 82.8 per 100,000, common assault 86.4 per 100,000, common robbery 20.9 per 100,000. This per 100,000 indicates that if you were to take the total population of the country and divide it into equal portions of 100,000, the possibility of a person ending up being a victim of a murder is 20.4 for every 100,000 people in the population. Then continuing with that slide, we see that for contact-related crimes, we had a decrease of 32, malicious damage to property an increase of 598, and collectively the contact-related crimes increased by 566. Property-related crime, the category increased by 6,554 from 91,450 to 98,004. Then you can see the component crime that make up that particular broad category of property-related crimes, and we had a decrease only in terms of theft of motor vehicle and motorcycle of 325. Then other serious crimes, we had an increase of 10,760 from 101,820 to 112,508. Collectively, there is 17 community-reported crimes increased by 36,945. Then the crime detected as a result of police action, where the desired direction of change is an increase. We had an increase in terms of illegal possession of firearms and ammunition. This implies that the police have removed more illegal firearms and ammunition from the community, increasing that particular crime count by 545. Drug-related crimes increased by 6,451. Driving under the influence of alcohol and drugs decreased by 2,233. Sexual offenses increased by 798. And the sum total of crimes detected as a result of police action increased by 5,561, resulting in a 10.2% increase. Now, this just gives a graphical presentation of the 17 community-reported crimes for the 3 months that are under review. We had increases across the 3 months of October, November, and December. Each month of the 3 months respectively increasing by 649 in October, November 8,195, Then in December, we had an increase of the 17 community reported crimes of 14,101. And all these provinces have recorded increases when you take into consideration the 17 community reported crimes. Then when you look at the last line there, which gives you the contribution per province to the total of the 17 community reported crimes, you see that the highest province that had the highest number of 17 community reported crimes was the province of Gauteng with 27.1, and then the Western Cape is the second highest with 18.9. Then the top 30 stations for the 17 community reported crimes. In column 1, we had the position when you take the whole stations in the country, and then in column 2 is the top station when you only consider the province in which that particular station is located. So the RSA position is when you take into consideration all the stations in South Africa, and the second column is only for the province in which that particular station is located. So using that analogy, concentrating on the RSA position, we see that Cape Town Central is the station with the highest number of crimes. The second highest station with the number of crimes is the Mitchell's Plain, Johannesburg Central at number 3, Durban Central at number 4, Park Road at number 5, Rustenburg at number 6. And one thing that you can realize here is that most of these stations are within the metropolitan areas. And all these top 9 stations have recorded increases when you take into consideration the 17 community reported crimes. And now moving on to the subcategories, starting with contact crimes. These are the crimes that include murder, attempted murder, sexual assault, assault GBH, assault common, robberies, etc. We had recorded increases in the month of October of 8,384, in November 2,690, in December 7,993, and all the provinces have recorded increases within the contact crimes, and the highest contributing province is the province of Gauteng with 27.2, and the Western Cape second with 17.3. These are the top 30 stations. Again, we look at the position at the national level and also at the provincial level. The highest station at the national level is Johannesburg Central, number 2 is Mfuleni, number 3 Alexander, number 4 Nyanga, and number 5 is Tembisa, and all the top 5 stations have recorded increases in terms of the contact crimes. Now, when you look at the causative factors in terms of the crimes that we have selected, that is your murder, attempted murder, and assault GBH, from a sample of 7,337, we see that the arguments were the most cause of causative factor that has been indicated as a causative factor for the murder. We had 1,164 murders attributable to arguments, misunderstanding, road rage, and provocation. And at the same time, the same phenomenon was attributable to 19,434 assault GBH cases. Vigilantism or mob justice was the second highest attributable factor with 536, retaliation or revenge for murder at number 3 with 413, robberies 403, gang-related 272, of which the majority was in the province of the Western Cape, tax-related were 88, and the rest of the causative factors can be determined from that particular table. Then the place of occurrence, one thing that we need to emphasize in this slide is that the place of occurrence is simply that, is the place of occurrence. It does not necessarily imply that the people that were murdered, like for instance at the petrol stations, are necessarily petrol attendants. It simply indicates where the body was retrieved or where the person was killed. If you take this analogy and look at educational institutions where we had 12 people murdered, this does not necessarily imply that all the 12 people that were murdered were school-going children or learners or teachers, although some of the victims were indeed learners. For instance, we had a recent case whereby a person who had put a knife at the principal's neck was shot when the other teacher was at the school, fortunately had a knife, and then he eliminated that person. The scene would have been taken at the school, but it does not imply that the person who was killed is a learner. So this is just the place where the murder or where the body was recovered. We had public places attributable to 3,467 murders, robbery, residences of the perpetrator, including residents known by victims, 2,003 murders, places where alcohol is sold, liquor outlets, shebeens, taverns, and pubs, 304 murders, business premises, 118 murders, tuck shops, 109, agricultural land, farm plots, 86, mining area, 22, then educational facilities, 12, dumping sites, 12, petrol stations, 12, prison cells, 19. Then crimes against women and children, starting on the left with the women, we had 199 more women killed in this quarter compared to the previous quarter, 396 women attempted murders more, 1,579 more assault GBH against women. Then looking at the children, starting with the murder, covering both boys and girls between the ages of 0 and 17, we had a decrease in terms of the murders of 33. We had an increase in attempted murders of 94 and assault GBH a decrease of 9. Then the graphical representation, we had increases across all the 3 months of the quarter. The only province that had recorded a decrease in terms of the murder was the province of Limpopo, which has 97 counts less when compared to the previous period. And in terms of the contribution, the province with the highest contributor to the murders is the province of KwaZulu-Natal, which contributes 24.1% to the total of the murders reported in the country. The second highest is Gauteng with 22.8%. The third highest is the Eastern Cape with 19.1%. That is when you only take into consideration the total number of people murdered. However, when you bring into context the total population within the respective provinces and do your per capita murder, you see that the pattern changes, and the highest number of per capita murders are reported in the Eastern Cape province with 22.5 per 100,000. The second highest is the Western Cape with 16.5 per 100,000, KwaZulu-Natal 15.6 per 100,000, and Gauteng at number 4 with 10.6 per 100,000. Limpopo is the province with the lowest per capita murder of 4.4 people per 100,000. Then this is a graphical representation of the same slide that we had indicated, indicating the respective provinces, the direction of change of the murders, either green if it is a decrease and red when it is an increase, and the size of the circles indicate the per capita within that particular province. And here we have the mid-year population estimates of the respective provinces, which you can then use to compute the per capita murder for the respective provinces. These were obtained from the 2021 mid-year population estimates provided by Statistics South Africa. Then the top 30 stations, we are led by Mfuleni at number 1, number 2 is Inanda, 3 Delft, 4 places Liar, 5 Nyanga, and all the top 5 stations have recorded increases in terms of the murders that had been reported when compared to the similar period in the previous quarter. Then the causative factors, we have already indicated this. This here is simply indicates the breakdown in terms of the province. We've seen that 1,164 murders were attributable to arguments and misunderstanding, and the leading province was KZN, with 317 murders being attributable to arguments. Similarly, KZN led in the vigilantism and mob justice. From the 536 murders attributable to mob justice, KZN was attributable to 118. Revenge and retaliation from the 413, this time around it was the Western Cape which had the highest number of murders attributable to revenge with 166. Like I indicated in the previous slide, gang-related was mostly prevalent in the province of Western Cape. Of the 272 murders from this sample of 7,337, 229 of the murders were attributable to the province of Western Cape. The second highest province was the Eastern Cape with 23. The rest can be seen from this particular table. We also looked in terms of the multiple murders. That will be instances whereby more than one person is killed in one incident. The column at the top, or the row at the top, indicates the number of victims from 2 to 7, and then the rows indicate the respective provinces. So when you read, for instance, the Eastern Cape with 1, it indicates that there was an incident in the Eastern Cape where 7 people were killed in one incident. Similarly, there was an incident in the Gauteng province where 7 people were killed. For 6 victims, we had 6 victims in the Eastern Cape in one incident. Gauteng also had 1. KwaZulu-Natal also had 1. And then for 5, we had 1 in the Eastern Cape, 1 in KwaZulu-Natal, resulting in 5 victims incidents. So in total, we had 665 people who were killed, and 294 dockets were registered. Circumstances around the multiple murders, I'll touch only on the first 2, whereby we had 1 incident of 7 people killed in Beachy. The circumstances was that armed men stormed into the families' homes and demanded the burial funds that had allegedly been dropped off earlier as they were preparing to bury one family member. The suspects entered the house, demanded the money, shot and killed 7 family members between the ages of 29 and 68. Clearly you can see how people are heartless. When the family is bereaved, preparing to bury one person, they come and added additional 7 people just for the money that should have been or could have been used to bury one person. Now the family has to scrape and look for additional money to bury additional 7 victims. Robbery related was again in Annandale, where 7 people were killed. The 7 people that were shot dead, it happened when the 4 suspects tried to rob street vendors who were selling chicken feed. The vendors resisted, threw stones at the suspects. The suspect drove off, came back and shot at the vendors and the bystanders. 7 people were killed in that incident, and also 5 attempted murders were recorded in that particular incident. Then when you look at the types of weapons that are used in the commission of the murders, we see that 3,144 people were killed with firearms. This does not imply that there were 3,144 firearms that were killed. It indicates that there were 3,144 people who were killed through being shot. Then the second highest was knives. The minister has indicated that in his speech, so I will not labor much on this slide. Then murder of police officials. We had 1 less police officer killed in this current quarter compared to the previous quarter, from 27 in 2021 to 26 in 2022, resulting in 1 case less. And the increase was in the month of December, where 2 more police officers were killed when compared to the previous quarter. Murders in the farming community, the sum total or the difference between last year and this year is 0, where 11 farmers were killed last year and 11 farming community members were killed in the current year, resulting in 0. And these murders happened together with 6 robberies at residential premises, 1 rape and 1 stock theft. Then the rapes, we had increases across all the 3 months, October, November, and December, of 630, 16 in November, 458 in December, and the only province that recorded a decrease was the province of Limpopo with 97 counts less. And the highest contributing province in terms of the rapes was Gauteng with 19.9, and then KwaZulu-Natal, the second highest, with 18.8. The top 30 stations, or the top 5 of the top 30, are led by Inanda, Lusikisiki, number 2, Harare, number 3, Thohoyandou, number 4, and Umlazi at number 5. And of these top 5 stations, only Lusikisiki and Umlazi recorded decreases of 10 and 14 respectively. This is the graphical representation of the per capita rapes. Again, the analogy is the same. The red indicates the direction of change, and the green indicates that there was a decrease, and the size of the circle indicates the per capita for that particular province. And again, we have the total number of population within that particular province as estimated by the 2021 mid-year population estimates. The only province that recorded a decrease per capita in terms of the rapes was Mpumalanga, with 16.0 per 100,000 of the rapes. Places of occurrence, we had most places of occurrence where the rapes were attributable was the residence of the perpetrator or the victim, which was indicated at 5,935, like the minister indicated. These women and men were raped at the residence of the perpetrator or the victim, meaning that the perpetrators were the people that were known to the victims. Public places were attributable to 1,917 rapes. We also had the phenomenon of abandoned buildings, where 99 of the rapes happened in abandoned buildings, and most of these were in the province of Limpopo, with 25 of the rapes happening at such buildings, and the Eastern Cape with 21. Then the particular slide at the top bottom indicates the use of alcohol and drugs, and the bottom indicates the place whereby alcohol is being used, is being sold. We had 315 where the perpetrator or the victim has used alcohol in 315 of the murders, and 15 of the murders the perpetrator or the victim had used drugs in 15 of those murders. Then 304 murders happened at the place where alcohol is being sold, that is a tavern, a shebeen, a pub, a nightclub, etc. Then we had also 82 rapes happening at places where alcohol is being sold. Then at the educational premises, we had 49 rapes having taken place at educational facilities or schools. We also had 10 murders happening at schools. We had 3 rapes happening at tertiary institution and 1 murder at a tertiary institution, 2 rapes at special schools and 0 murder at special school, then 2 rapes at the daycare or aftercare center. Then domestic violence, which is used as a proxy for GBV, we had 305 murders attributable to domestic violence. That would be instances whereby there is some kind of a domestic relationship between the victim and the perpetrator, either as a brother, a father, ex-husband, ex-girlfriend, current boyfriend, etc. Of these victims that were murdered, 157 were female and 148 were male. We also had 1,191 rapes that were attributable to domestic violence. Of these, 1,128 were female and 63 were male. The rest of the crimes can be seen from this particular slide. Then the subcategories of robbery aggravating circumstances, starting with carjacking, we had an increase of 49 in carjacking and 106 in October. The decrease in December was 2. Gauteng, Mpumalanga, and Northern Cape recorded decreases, the other provinces increases. Then the top stations were Nyanga at number 1, Harare number 2, KwaZulu number 3, Olivenhout-Bosch number 4, Ivory Park number 5, and of these top 5, Harare was the one that recorded a decrease in carjacking. The types of vehicles that were mostly hijacked were sedans, hatchback, and coupe, 2,814. Buggies was the second highest with 1,697, station wagon 390, and then minibus 257 incidents. Robbery at residential premises, the only province that recorded a decrease was the province of Western Cape, and across all the 3 months making up the quarter, we had the increases of 122, 214, 160 for the 3 months of making up the quarter. Then we had top stations for robbery at rest: Plessis Lair number 1, KwaDukuza number 2, Tembisa number 3, Olivenhout-Bosch number 4, Mondio at number 5. Then non-residential, we had decreases in the Eastern Cape, Free State, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and the Western Cape, and overall for the country we had a decrease of 155 cases of robbery at non-residential premises. The top stations are Johannesburg Central, Pinetown, Thohoyandou, Kempton Park, and Witbank, making the top 5. Cash in transit, we had decreases in the month of October, of November, and December of 4 and 5 respectively, and overall we had a decrease of 3 counts less, from 60 in the previous quarter to 57 in the current quarter, and the highest contributing province to cash in transit robberies was Gauteng with 47.4. Then these are the types of robberies that happened. You can see that most of the Gauteng robberies was cross pavements, and then we had 8 when the armored vehicle was on the road. Truck hijacking, we had decreases in Free State, Limpopo, Northwest, and the Western Cape. The top stations mostly are in Gauteng, led by Mpumalanga, Delmas, number 2, Orange Farm 3, Alberton 4, Jamestown, and 5, Kempton Park. Then we also looked at kidnapping. That will be instances where kidnapping was the means to an end, not where the kidnapping was used as a modus operandi, like for instance when the kidnapping was also done with the carjacking, whereby they kidnap the victim so that they can stop them from reporting the crime. We only looked at incidents where the kidnapping was the means to an end itself. Of these kidnappings, 128 ransom was demanded, and most of this was in Gauteng with 76. We also had 12 human trafficking kidnappings, and 6 was in Gauteng, 23 kidnappings which were attributable to extortion, and 10 were in the province of Gauteng. Then this simply shows the graphical representation of the same information we just shown in the previous slide. Then we also had instances whereby the resources of the police were diverted to go and police other incidents. We had the resources diverted mostly in KZN to police peaceful events of 423 and Gauteng 403, and those that were deemed unrest, we had 90 in KZN and 97 in the province of Gauteng. Again, this does not include instances whereby the resources, especially because we are coming from the matric exams, where the police were also asked to escort question papers to the respective schools during the various...
All right, and we come out of that briefing where the crime statistics are being explained, murder up, rape up in South Africa, a very bleak picture.